There we go.
Thank you.
For you.
All right.
Test the microphone. Hello?
Hello.
Oh. Yes. There we go.
Testing.
All right. Well, hello. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. When you support Left Bank Books, your money goes directly to the local economy. It helps us keep our doors open. It helps us fund our literacy projects. It helps keeps the parks free, the libraries open, all of those fantastic things. And just showing up tonight is a gift. So thank you so much for choosing to be here. I am Shane Mullen. I'm the event coordinator for Left Bank Books, and I will be in conversation with our fantastic author this evening. I'm very excited. A little bit of, well, I do want to say that we do have our event calendar up on our website. We have a lot of really exciting upcoming events in March, April. I just put up a fantastic kids event since we are in the kids room. Aaron and Trotta Kelly and Kwame Mbalia will be with us in April. We do have About the Drag Queen. So if you're watching Traders like I am, I'm really excited about the reunion tomorrow. You can catch Bob at an event at the end of March. And we do have a lot of really exciting events that have not yet been posted. So pay attention, because I'm always doing things that are up to good and no good. Tonight, we are welcoming Ada Calhoun, the New York Times bestselling author of Why We Can't Sleep, also a poet and St. Mark's is Dead. We are very excited to welcome Ada back for another great visit to St. Louis for her first novel, Crush. I have so many things to say about this novel. I have notes on my phone, so if you see me looking at my phone, it is because that's where my notes are. Molly Ringwald says, the word crush often conjures the innocence of adolescence, a time when your life story isn't yet written and anything is possible. But what happens when that dormant feeling is awakened in middle age? Ada Calhoun's Crush is a gripping fever dream of a book leading the reading into the beguiling depths of desire, ecstasy, and obsession. Tonight, we will be in conversation.
We will lead you into the depths of ecstasy and obsession.
Yes. When a husband asks his wife to consider what might be missing from their marriage, what follows surprises them both. Sex, heartbreak, and heart rekindling, and a rediscovered sense of all that is possible. She's happy and settled and productive and content in her full life. A child, a career, an admirable marriage, deep friendships, happy parents, and a spouse she still loves. But when her husband urges her to address what the narrow labels of husband and wife force them to edit out of their lives, the very best kind of hell breaks loose. Using the author's personal experiences as a jumping off point.
Jumping off
Point, yes. Crush is about the danger and liberation of chasing desire, the havoc it can wreak, and most of all, the clear sense of self one finds when the storm passes. Destined to become a classic novel of marriage and tackling the big questions being asked about partnership in post-pandemic relationships, Crush is a sharp, funny, seductive, and revelatory novel about holding on to everything as possible to love. Friends, children, parents, passion, lovers, husbands, all the world's good books, and most of all, one's own deep sense of purpose. Ada Calhoun is the author of Also a Poet, named one of the best books of 2022 by the New York Times, NPR, and the Washington Post, longlisted for the Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Nonfiction, and featured on the Today Show and PBS NewsHour. Her other books include St. Mark's is Dead and the New York Times bestsellers Why We Can't Sleep. Without further ado, would you please help me in welcoming the incredible Ada Calhoun.
Thank you all.
I want to start with the obvious. You have written, you're a journalist, you have written a lot of nonfiction books. what was the driver to get into this story, and was it difficult to kind of break those ties between the styles of nonfiction and the styles of fiction?
I found it very liberating. Yes. So the last 2 years have been a little chaotic, and I've seen dealt with my father's illness and death, and I moved. I got divorced. There's the pandemic. Then my parents' building burned down. There was just this slew of caregiving responsibility and personal drama. My son left for college. Like, it was just a lot of things. And I thought about doing it in all these different ways. I thought about talking about those issues I was dealing with in another memoir. And I thought about doing it as like a Why We Can't Sleep sequel, now more of a bummer than ever. And I thought, what would be more fun is to make it a romance novel.
In some ways, this book did make me go, oh no, is this what I have to look forward to?
You'll be fine.
Thank you. I mean, I am a gay man who has been in a variety of relationships, some knowingly open, some not knowingly open.
We should talk about that.
And I have friends that are in a variety of relationships. Some have been successful open relationships. I've had friends that have been in not successful open relationships, which made me build a little display, a little companion display of Polysecure and a few other non-monogamous books that if anyone in attendance or watching online, we want to feel you all out, is wanting to explore those things. The main character kind of doesn't do her research.
Oh no, she's resistant to that kind of research, the practical research, and just goes for the esoteric. And yes, she sort of plumbs the depths of world literature, trying to find ways that she can stay married and also get to be with this other man.
And how did this relationship, in this book, how did you develop that? How did the characters come to you? I'm very curious because they are very unique. I have not read characters like them in books that I have read. Maybe they exist, but I found these characters.
Now they do.
I know. Thank you.
So, like some of it was inspired by people I know and that kind of thing. But what was so wonderful about doing it as a novel is that now these people are real, which is really lovely. And I was just at the Taylor Swift concert, like one of the last Eras tour shows with my goddaughter in New Orleans. And she said this thing from stage where she's like, people always want to know who these people are in my songs. Like, is this about John Mayer? Is this about whoever? And she's like, you know what the songs are about? They're about this moment with you. They're about us now. And she says, like, she doesn't think about those moments of getting her heart broken anymore. She thinks about singing the songs with all the people in the stadiums. And so for me, making it a novel let me do that. So, it was just, it was so freeing. And I thought it was like, for when I was doing memoir, it was really important who the people were, right? Like it was, so also a poet was a book about my father, and a poet Frank O'Hara, and those were historic people. And so for this, like the influences on the best friend, is a lot like my 3 best friends and my shrink, right? Like, but now it's like just Veronica is the person.
Did any characters go in directions that you didn't expect them to go when they first made bubbles in your head?
Well, I mean, I think, I was trying to make the book suspenseful, like kind of a page turner. And so it was really important to me to have it be not 100% sure what the main character was going to do. Like, is she going to stay in the marriage? Is she not going to stay in the marriage? And it was interesting because when a friend of mine read the book early on, he said it's like the band, there's like a band playing like go with this other person. Like, and it's like a marching band going on the street with like twirlers and like a full brass section and everything. And he's like, and right now the voice or the instrument saying like stay in the marriage is like a recorder off in the distance. So so the advice was to make there be more balance in those different relationships in the book. So I wound up changing it in that way.
I've been talking to customers about this book and trying to entice them
Thank you.
without giving away too much. Because the beginning of the book is very enticing and draws you in immediately. And then, yeah, I literally devoured.
Oh,
Like,
thank you.
I think 2 nights, maybe not even. But it's so beautiful to be able to describe, and I think the beauty of this book is that I get to people who say that they only read nonfiction. It's so easy to be like, this style and this kind of like intimate moments feels like it is a memoir that you wrote from this character perspective. And that's brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, I was fond of it as well because I did know how to write a memoir, and I think switching to fiction is a little intimidating. But I was like, you know what? You get to take everything you want. Anything from the style, anything from your life, anything from you heard, and you get to make it part of this new construction, and then you can do whatever you want with it. It's just, I mean, I feel so dumb, right? Like I'm talking to my friends who are novelists, and I'm like, guys, did you know about this? It's amazing. You can make stuff up. It's wild. So, and I would say like a lot of the books I've found myself really loving in the last few years have been a little bit like on the line in different ways. So, and they're almost all French, right? Like Emmanuel Carrère, Annie Ernaux, and Barres, The Postcard, which is such a great book about her family's experience during the Holocaust. And she called it a true novel, right? Because like so much actually happened that she wrote about, but she made it into a novel.
Were there any people along the way, your early readers, or that were reluctant to join you in this journey and like we're trying to encourage either a further break between reality and fiction, or we're like, oh, this should be your story. Like you should tell what happened, what you've gone through.
Yeah, no, both of those things happened. My friend Ada Calhoun, who's novel we were just looking at over there, Where You End, which is a great mystery novel. She's very descriptive, right? Like when she writes nonfiction or fiction, it's so lush and it's all you feel the crinolines and the weather and all of it. And she does that with her nonfiction and her fiction. And she footnotes, like she's like this, the sun was breaking through the clouds, and she's got an end note there that's like on that day it was, partly cloudy. And so she was like, you need more scenes. You need this to be much more, descriptive and lush. But like, I think I write fiction and nonfiction both like memoir. And I think she writes nonfiction and fiction both like exciting period novels, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a style thing. And I thought like, I get it. I love what other people do, but I just want to do it.
Yeah. I think that your nonfiction readers will identify in that style. And that's why I think it is very easy for nonfiction readers to pick up and to dive into the other side of life. I did read Abbott's most recent book, which I have to say also feels like it's so much blended.
Yeah.
And at one point we did an event for her, and she said that there are certain things that we can't be certain of, and that true to like the nonfiction side, like you have to adhere to what you can like actually say. And that to me has always felt like the struggle with writing a memoir. Like, it has to be much harder to write memoir because you'd be like, well, that's how I remember it, but is that how everyone else remembers it?
Well, but I think that's like the reader goes in knowing this is just one side of the story, but you want to make it as accurate as possible. And I think that is, that's so interesting to me. I just talked to a memoirist who said that she made stuff up sometimes, right? Like scenes. And she's like, that's just part of memoir writing. And I was like, that is not part of memoir writing as far as I know it, right? So I think there's a different definition. And I think sometimes people, if they're talking about like creative nonfiction or that kind of thing, what they mean is they're like fudging it a little bit, which for me is just, I think because I came up as a journalist, you just can't do that, right? You have to like make it really clear. If you don't remember, you say you don't remember. And, but anything that I'm putting in a memoir or anything nonfiction is definitely true to the very best of my ability.
You mentioned very real books in this book. So I'm wondering what your research looked like for this. Did you read, unlike the main character, probably Secure?
Yes, I did. I read every book that I mentioned in the book. I have a room at the New York Public Library at the main branch, in Bryant Park. And there are these rooms they're called scholars rooms, and you can get a key card and swipe yourself in, and then they will bring you all the books you want. And then you have a shelf. And so when I was working on this book and trying to explore these questions about love and relationships and fidelity and being true to yourself versus to other people and what commitment means and all those, I just called in I think probably hundreds of books on these topics from like every era, right? So it was like, Stendhal and Montaigne and Paul Secure, and like just trying to get as many different voices in my head as I could. And then I wound up quoting a ton of them just because that's how I don't know, that's how I talk to people. I'm always bringing books up, and and my character is too. She thinks like there's nothing you can't solve if you have a library card. Even a love triangle.
Even a love triangle. Was there anything in your reading that you were like, this is garbage advice?
I mean, a lot of it I think was garbage advice. I think that I think a lot of the relationship books, especially these sort of old advicey books, are about like how to catch a man, right? How to get somebody to marry you, and it was so transactional, right? I think I found a lot of books about love were so much about love as some kind of achievement, like not something you do, but something you're able to acquire. And I didn't like this book.
When I was going through maybe the worst breakup.
Okay, which we're going to end detail.
Did not know that I was in an open relationship. But after getting out of it, I read, it was made into the film. He's Just Not That Into.
Yeah, right.
Which, that movie is nothing like the book. The book, not helpful.
No.
Not helpful at all. Very it just felt very straight and very not applicable to anything I was going through. But I made it. I forced it to be applicable just so that I could be like, okay, I've read a self-help book.
I feel like the one thing that's probably you can take from that is just don't call the person, right? Which is sometimes that's all you need. So maybe the book can be useful just as a one line thing, which is maybe don't call them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And we haven't talked about the other aspect of books, which is how the one side of the love triangle is formed. And they communicate through books, which I love. And I'm curious where that inspiration came from. And it just feels so like something that I would want to do with my friends, something that could be applied to so many different relationships. So it felt so wonderful.
Oh, I'm so glad. So I have pen pals, and I've had a lot of really dear friends who I have corresponded with about various things, including this. And so, with their permission, I was able to use pieces of those actual things that as a sort of inspiration for this. And it's really funny that you say that because that character in the book, like, when people ask, like, oh, is it memoir? So many people, men that I know, are like, just tell them it's me. And which I think is so funny, just this idea, it's like Spartacus or something, where they're like, no, I'm him. No, I'm him. Because he's very sexy in the book. There is no, there's not a, it's a novel.
Yeah. Have you had responses from, because I have friends that are in the poly community that would read this and say, that's a great relationship that brings a lot of drama to it, but that's not how you should do it.
Oh, no. Yes. No, it's not how you should do it.
Have you had readers?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have. Well, and it's sort of like unfortunate in some ways that some of the magazines that have written about it, like New York Magazine was like, it's this year's poly novel. And I'm like, oh my God, you're setting me up for so many bad reviews on the internet because it's not, right? It's like it's a woman who has been a very dutiful, good girl, teacher's pet, like classic Gen X, like worked forever, takes care of everybody, does everything, kind of person who then suddenly, because of this new love, is like, wait a minute, what am I doing? So that's very different than a deliberate move into some kind of more nuanced idea of monogamy.
And the next, I'm like, that spoiled too many things.
Sorry. So yes, I think, but it's interesting because one thing that has been true about this book so far, in a way that has surprised me, is it's been a kind of a projection screen in this way, where a lot of people reading it tell me that it's made them ask a lot of questions about their own life, or thought a lot of different things about how they are in relationships, or what they think about love, or especially commitment and duty and that kind of thing. So it's made them like think, oh, what more is possible? But also, some of them have said like that it's anti-polyamory, and some of them said it's pro-polyamory, and some of them said it's pro-marriage. It's really interesting that I think people try to read or have whatever seen in it a lot of different attitudes or positions, where I don't think it really takes a position at all. And that's part of why I think it's like it's a novel. It's about these certain people doing this certain thing, and it's not like a position paper.
Yeah. And I mean, you find yourself, I find myself cheering for her the entire time, because she is such a sensible person. She's so relatable. You can, regardless of romantic situation, find yourself in all of these kind of feelings that she's having, that she reveals. And it's so, that's part of what draws you in. Like, yeah.
Thank you. I'm so glad. I think there is something universal, right, about wanting love, and wanting love that is transformative in some way. And also I think that she winds up learning so much about herself from this particular relationship. And I think love does that at its best, right? It sort of shows us parts of ourselves that we wouldn't know about otherwise.
The last several years have seen kind of an explosion in people, I won't say reading romance, but in people maybe being so open about reading romance. Like, people that I know who have been reading romance for years are finally now able to like kind of be like, they're publishing books that I wanted to read like 25 years ago. And this, I think, fits into that like trend of like publishing books that are telling love stories in ways that exist in real life, that are allowing other people to be seen. I applaud you, and I don't know where the question is, but
I'll anticipate one question there. Okay, which is Kwame Alexander talks about the book on the Today Show, and they picked it as like best romance or whatever, February. And
In the month of romance.
no, I was so happy. And he's a delightful writer whose memoir is terrific. But the looks of horror when he was saying the plot, like on the other hosts' faces, like they were just like, what? Because he was like, yeah, the husband says maybe you could try kissing other people, and they're all like, that is not a romance, which I think is so interesting, right? Like there was so much pushback about that idea that you could have a relationship where, and it's not even in some kind of very elaborate kind of scenario. It's like maybe this small thing that we don't really have anymore, or in that case, like they don't really have. You could try that. Like, and I think people are really scared, understandably, because we've all been hurt, we've all been betrayed at different times, of giving any ground in that area, right? I think there's some anxiety about saying any of it's okay, because so much of it can lead to pain.
I now remember what my
Okay, good.
did you read any of the traditional romance? Romance typically is very structured. So it has to follow certain rules. It has to, like, you can break a few, but you can't break all of them. So I'm wondering, because this book reminds me a lot of Curtis Enfeld's comedy.
Yeah.
Curtis being from St. Louis.
And so we are crisscrossing each other. Her book came out the same day. And so I've been texting with her because we just keep missing each other, but we're going to do an event together on March 15th at the Chanhassen Library in Virginia.
So she owes me a glass of wine. So.
Oh, I'll leave it on your behalf. How about that?
Yeah. Oh, have you met her before?
Yes, just really briefly. Yeah.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, she's great.
But I'm wondering, did you read some of the more traditional romantic structures to then be able to understand, like, where you were making the breaks? And did you try to hold to any of those structures?
I have read some, but I did not do a thorough study. I did watch some rom-coms, and I really love like old romantic comedies. I just am like a big fan of 30s screwballs and stuff like that. So no, but I do know the basics, which is you need an obstacle, right? And you need tension around that, and then you need a resolution that feels happy. And I think I did those things.
I would argue, yes. Yeah, I think they've done the marketing, and I think they've done the kind of push to encourage like the romantic readers to maybe step out of the like more coziness and get a little bit uncomfortable, get a little bit uncertain with what's happening. And I hope that more romance readers find their way to your book.
Yeah, I also do. I do know that there is somebody was telling me that there's like a real objection to literary fiction in certain genre worlds, which I think is really interesting. That it's like a dirty word. So it is like, I don't want to like set anybody up who's expecting a Fabio cover kind of book. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with those at all. I think they're great too. So but yeah, I think it's somebody's called it like pornography for book nerds. Like there's a lot of book stuff in there. A lot of books.
Do you have a running list of all the books that you can easily just hand to people?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I made one. I made a spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet.
I love a spreadsheet too.
We will open it up to questions here in just a moment. So
no pressure.
Thinking, and I'll be able to check because I do know that I have some people joining us virtually. I need to refer to my notes because I know that I had one juicy question in there. Or do you have a question for me?
Okay, so this
This is not about me. Here we go. Oh, yes. Ooh,
Oh, you're so happy with your question.
I there too. You did mention the French and their kind of labeling of autofiction,
Mhm.
and I have read several books that are autofiction. I don't tend to find myself like I read them with less enjoyment because I want to be like, what is real, what is not real, and like frequently I kind of like it doesn't fit for me. And maybe it's because I don't read enough of them. So I'm wondering if you have similar feelings and have, or what your feelings are on autofiction, and if you like.
I mean, yeah, we can start there.
Okay,
I don't think about genre that much when I'm reading. Like it really is whatever the story is, and I don't think I care how much of it or how little of it is real in the world. Like it really doesn't matter to me that much. I mean, it does matter to me if somebody's saying it's a nonfiction book, it's not a nonfiction book. Just as a journalist, I'm like, they should go to jail. But as far as like whether they stole from their lives like 90% of the plot or like 20%, I just feel like every novelist takes some, right? And I don't think there's like some dividing line where it goes from being like autofiction, which isn't real fiction, at 15% or something like that, and becomes like real fiction later. So for me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me, maybe because I read so many French books.
That was it. That was when I was reading this. I didn't care. Like who knows what if this is real? Who knows what if this is fiction? I don't know. We have known each other for years, and I know what I know about you from our conversations that have not delved into much beyond cocktail, polite conversation and books. Obviously, books. So yeah, it didn't. I didn't want to scrutinize the writing process, and it went away, and I was able to fall completely into the book. And it really wasn't until I was preparing for the event that I was like, oh wait, yeah, you did start this book. It's like from the introduction, like using your personal experiences as a jumping off. Oh, I forgot that. Like,
Well, it's so interesting. Like, one of the first people who read the book, she's like, I don't care how much of it is about you because this book is not about you at all. It's about me. She was like, which I think is how all books that I love are, right? Every book that I love, it's about me. I'm like, I don't really care about the author. They can get out of the way. You know what I mean? It's my book.
Yeah. Another, I literally just have fate typed down. Which that was what was making me giggle. So I'm like, why did I type that? That is my question. How is fate something that you incorporated into the book, and how does it fall into your own personal life? Because I do remember very vividly being like, it's all just happening, and she's making things happen, but things are happening to her.
Well, I think that she's somebody who likes to control everything and be in charge, and then I think finds herself with this kind of love that is driving the car, right? And she's no longer in charge. She's no longer driving, and which is exhilarating and terrifying for somebody who's really used to keeping a handle on everything. And I will say that was an experience that I had in my life, right? I had many things in the last few years, both wonderful and terrible, have made me realize how little control we have over anything in our lives, right? Like, and it's really scary when you really feel it. And it's also sort of strangely liberating. And I found that love and grief go together so closely, and that the more grief I dealt with, the more love I felt, and the more love I felt, the more grief I felt too.
Since so much of this involves books, my last question will be, what book do you want to recommend that we have not already recommended? Because we've recommended so many.
Oh yeah. That's a really good question. I should have prepared for. I will say I'm going to say Emmanuel Carrere just because I just finished B13. Do you have that? Do you know that book? It just came out in English translation, and he sat every day in the trial for the Bataclan massacre, and he covered it for the French press. And so he made it small, like that. It's like the size of my book, and it's just about the experience of being there at the trial, and it's also just everything that happened in the trial, but condensed and told in this kind of this beautiful storytelling that he does so well. I love everything he does. He's done Lives of My Own, which is about the tsunami and about grief. And do you know that one?
Yes.
And then My Life as a Russian Novel, that was really good. Yoga came out more recently, which I think had some problems because, just to tie it into this autobiography, his wife in their divorce decree said he couldn't write about her anymore. And so he had to pull things about her out of the book. And you can kind of feel where the holes are. I know, right? But I love him.
I'm going to recommend to you
Yes, please.
Annie Hartnett's The Road to Tender Hearts.
Oh,
I think it's a good companion to yours.
do you have it? I'll go buy it right now.
It's not out yet.
Oh, it's
I know, it's pre-ordered. Yeah. I think it comes out in April,
Okay.
end of April. It is a road trip story.
Uh-huh.
It is an older romance-esque story.
Okay.
The main character has won $1.5 million in the lottery, is divorced, has an estranged daughter, and a daughter who has died, and his ex-wife, is going with her new to-be fiance to Alaska, and he is left for the first time on his own to do whatever. He decides that he's going to drive to Arizona to meet this woman that he was in love with when he was like a teenager, because her husband has recently passed away, but he finds himself in the care of his great niece and great nephew, who did not know that he existed, he didn't know that they existed, and now he's in their care. They are in his care. So it's a road trip story. It is a quirky romance.
Great. I'm sold.
It breaks all the rules and has so many dead bodies.
Oh,
There's
amazing.
a cat that is a harbinger of death.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely in. That sounds wonderful.
It speaks. I think it is the same reader for that book, for your book.
Great. I can't wait.
People who appreciate the beauty in like the places you don't expect them.
Yeah, fabulous.
Would you all like to ask any questions?
I can ask a question.
Sure.
I mentioned when I walked in that I'm a new fan. I just heard of this I'm a fan of left-wing books, of course, and loved what I read about this and about just your other work. So in what you've said so far, and first of all, I can't wait. Like, I'll have this read by the weekend. I'm so excited now. No spoiler. I don't feel like you gave anything away.
No, you did a wonderful job.
Other than
always.
other than I need to read it as fast as I can, because I'm sure it can be great. But this was the first kind of novel writing this for you. So when you're looking ahead, like, do you want to do this next, or just not sure?
Yeah. Well, so like every book that I've written sort of found me in this way. I haven't had, speaking of fate, which I think is a very fun question. I like every book kind of happened. So like St. Mark's is Dead happened because I was working at the New York Post with a crime reporter. There's around all these people talking about New York being over. We're just like so bad now, it's so terrible, it used to be so good. And then I was like, wait a minute, like you're talking about this time when I was here and everybody was saying that then, right? That it used to be so good. So then that book kind of just happened, right? I just wound up writing this history of New York. And the next one, I wrote this essay for the New York Times about marriage, and then it went viral, and then they asked me to do that book, and then it became like an essay collection. And then wrote a story for Oprah that kind of went viral about being a Gen X woman who was very upset and exhausted. And then that became a book. And then also I was trying to write a biography of Frank O'Hara to finish my father's work. And it wasn't working. And I kept running into the same trouble. And my dad died with cancer. And my parents' building burned up and all that. So then I wanted to turn it into a memoir about my dad instead of a biography. So, and in this, I was like, what do I do with all this tragedy and beauty and everything? And I was like, I will make it a novel. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen next. Like, I'm sort of scared. But also I just think now I trust it, like whatever happens, like whatever comes about with books, I just will do that. I also did just sell a children's book.
Really?
Yeah.
Speaking of different, okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like trying to colonize every part of the bookstore. Like it'll, like if anything ever is like in the two books in the same section, you'll know that it's really
Or maybe you just written that many books at that point, and you're like, oh, I came back around. I do like to joke that some authors just need their own like little section. I'm like, well, I mean, if you are a fan of theirs, you have to really take a tour of the bookstore. So yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like, we'll just take a tour of the store. Where would you like to find your Ada Calhoun? What is a kid's book then? This is so exciting.
Yeah, so my son just left for college, right? Like in the last year. And I was so sad. And so I wound up writing like this thing about a kid in the city, because he really did have a family in the neighborhood. You know, he knew the deli guy and he knew the fireman and he knew everybody. So I wound up writing this little thing about that. And then I was like, this actually could be like a book that I feel like is good, especially because they're like if you grow up in a city, right, you have that. Like you just wind up having this family, and I think cities get a bad rap, right? Like kids are supposed to go to the suburbs or something, but no, like you really do wind up having this family inside your neighborhood often. So that's picture book.
Is that book published now?
2027.
2027.
Yeah, just signed the contract yesterday.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome.
Are there any things that we did not discuss that you would like to make certain that we?
I can't think of anything. I'll say I love being on book tour, and I love going to different cities and being in bookstores and getting to talk about books. I feel really, really lucky. And they're always different. And this book it's been really interesting. So like one event, everybody was crying and like everybody bought the book Wild Edge of Sorrow at the end. Like they would put in all these orders for it at the bookstore. And then another one was just like all about like Teen Beat magazine and like crushes, from like middle school and stuff like that. And then like last night it was like all these Iowa City writing students asking about ghostwriting. So I just like talked about ghostwriting, which is something that I do. I've ghostwritten like 30 books. And so I just wanted telling them how that works and explaining publishing to them. So it's like, but what a wonder, how lucky, you know what I mean? Like to be able to just have every night be totally different. I think that's kind of what I wanted when I became a writer, is just like to never be bored, and now I'm never bored.
Fulfilling prophecy.
I haven't heard that term autofiction before. So we're saying that that's like combining fiction and a memoir?
So when did autofiction come about as a name? And I do feel like it's sort of become like almost derogatory, sort of in some way, like where it's like, oh, that's autofiction. And so I think like Sheila Heti, I feel like was maybe one of the first people who was really maybe now Scott. No, because I feel like somehow he got a pass. I feel like it's mostly about women.
I don't think that he should have.
No, I don't think so either. But I do think it's often women, right, who were like put in this category of like, oh, you're just writing about your life. Because and then because I'm always like, but look at him, like thousands and thousands of pages. And you know, some of which I really enjoyed, like the birthday party book is like amazing, right? He like wrote, I mean, how many hundreds of pages is just devoted to this kid's birthday party he was at? It's like tour de force. But I think it's about the book itself, right? It's like the experience you have reading it. And it just doesn't matter to me what percentage is like actually happens outside.
I'm gonna say that that's probably why I have not liked the autofiction that I read. I think all the autofiction that has been defined as autofiction has been very masculine.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I need to branch out. I need to do more reading of fun autofiction.
It's kind of a weird term.
Yeah,
You know, I'm not sure that I'm really liking it. I just haven't, I mean, I read a lot and I haven't heard.
yeah. No, I don't know if I like. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just sort of taken it for granted that that's like what books are called sometimes when they are direct. They seem very much like the author.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm trying to remember the one that I did really like. There's a queer French author. I think he has 3 books, and I read 2 of them that all stem from something pretty traumatic that happened to him, and then to deal with the trauma, because it would be, I mean, probably a little life level of
uh-huh.
dealing with trauma otherwise, which everyone needs kind of a warning to go into that book. But those one, like the 2 that I read of his, feel like it's such a personal exploration of what could be that I can appreciate a lot. Like, it's dealing with the actual, like, things that have happened to you would be too much. So
Okay.
then dealing with incorporating them into fiction become freeing.
There's one that's coming out that I just flirt. It's called Middle Spoon. It's a polyamorous. Do you know this book?
I think I just met the author.
It's Varela. And he's married to his husband, but then they have an open
Alejandro.
marriage. Yes, Alejandro. Yes,
I
you
had
can
dinner with him. I had dinner with him in Denver.
I mean, I haven't met him, but
They did not describe the book. I did not.
oh, yes, so they're in a polyamorous relationship, and then or a open marriage, and then he winds up falling madly in love with another man, and they break up, and then the book is it's an epistolary. It's an incredible book. It's an epistolary book where it's all heartbroken love letters. The whole thing is just directed toward this man, and it's in the form of like unsent emails, basically. It's fabulous. It's very funny and just extremely charming. And and I think it definitely it feels so much like it feels so real, right?
Yeah.
But I loved it. Yeah, I just loved it. It's coming out in I think the summer maybe.
Yeah, they did not tell me anything about that.
Oh, yeah,
They
yeah.
just were sitting next to each other at dinner.
Amazing. Okay, well, no, that's great.
We could have had a lot more fun. Well, I want to thank you for joining us
Yes,
this evening.
thank you. Thank you for being online.
Yes, the online people. We do have books available for sale at the desk. If you're watching online, you can order a signed copy from us at left-bank.com. Be sure to check out our future event series. We do have a lot of things that are fun, and tell your friends to read this book, because more people should be reading this book. I won't be satisfied until 98% of people have read it.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
French author. Do we have books by
Oh yeah, do you have Life of a Man maybe? That's the one I
I
usually see.
don't know.
Oh look,
Correct. I just looked it up in Olivia in the library.
Do they have
But
it?
Mostly it's in French.
Oh, well they've translated Life of a Man